Yeah.
All right. First on the agenda tonight is a discussion of recruitment bonus.
Councilman Burrell, did you want to address it, or you want me to?
Yeah, go ahead.
So we have been talking for a little bit about trying to do a recruitment bonus for employees who recruit somebody to come work for the city of Fairhope. So we did check legally if we could do that, and we can. It just has to be combined with our one-time pay increase that we do in December for the employees. So we opted to look at a schedule, and I'm sorry, I thought it was in the binder, but it's not in there, and I don't have a copy of it in front of me, but I can pull it up. That basically splits a $500 recruitment bonus over a 2-year period, where you would potentially, like 3 months in, you would get $200. 6 months in or a year in, you get another $200. Then you pay out $100 on maybe the second year. So it would be $500 paid out over 2 years. It would also give us the opportunity to be able to have employees who maybe mentor other employees, especially new employees. I think HR right now is doing a really good job of checking in with those new employees who are coming in, fairly young, trainee type positions. But again, it would put some burden back on the employee that recruits them to kind of mentor them to make sure they stay. $500 is really a drop in the bucket these days, I understand, but it's just, again, another tool we're trying to use for recruitment and retention of employees.
Is it tied in any way to that employee staying here?
It does.
Either the new employee or the person who made the referral?
Correct. So the recruited employee would not get anything. The referring employee would get the $500, and the person would have to stay in order for the employee, obviously, to get it. That's to get the bonus. That's why I said it would be a mentoring tool also for them to, check in with them, see how they're doing, encourage them to stay if they were thinking about leaving, that kind of thing. So again, it's just something else that we can add to our benefit package for the employees as another tool to be able to retain current employees and hopefully recruit new employees. We are staying right now at about an 86%, I guess, employment rate. We have right now, I think, about probably 40 vacancies. We are still having a hard time. A lot of it's hiring those entry-level positions, but we have had a lot of turnover this year because, again, people are just, they're coming, they're working a couple weeks. I don't think they realize exactly, how much they're going to have to work, and then they leave. So, and even some, y'all know, even in some upper management positions, we've had turnover, so.
So I think when I first saw this, I thought it was like a sign-on bonus, but it's really more of a referral bonus.
It is a referral bonus.
Okay.
Yeah. And again, Councilman Burrell might want to weigh in. He's the one who asked that we look at that.
Yeah, if I may, and I don't have the details in front of me, but I just want to make sure that, there's a minimum, like Council President Robinson said, a minimum amount they need to stay employed before they get the bonus, and then the employee still needs to be employed when they get the bonus. I mean, they can't leave and the other person stay and then them get the bonus. So they have to be employed on the date of that, whether it's 6 months or a year, and that's just standard practice for any of these recruiting bonuses. And I wanted to say, I know it's spread out over 2 years, but I've seen a lot of them that said you have to stay employed a year. Did I see that it was maybe less than that?
So the way I just pulled it up. The way it's worded, as an employee who is employed for 3 months, the referring employee would get $200. If they were employed 6 months, they would get $100, and then if they're employed a year, they would get another $200. So again, we can only do that in December. So it may be where they get paid out. If they were hired in December, they would get paid out the next December, but it could split 2 years. But they have to stay here a year to get paid out the $500.
Do we want to give a bonus if somebody only stays 3 months? I've never seen one that loose.
I think the last time you and I spoke, it was because we had to pay it out over 2 years that we looked at that kind of split. I mean, we could do it 6 months and then 6 months, 6 months then a year. That's really something that's up for discussion.
Like a 6 months and a 6 months at $250 each time would make more.
And we can do that.
Streamline it a little bit.
We can do that.
That's what I would be in
Okay,
favor of.
okay.
No, this is only to the person that recruited the hire.
That's correct. That's correct.
Yeah, so, every 6 months.
Okay. If y'all like that, then we'll bring it back to you next time for consideration, if that's okay. And I'll go ahead and email this out once we make the corrections.
Is that for every department, for every opening, or is that only for certain departments?
That would be for every opening.
Is it not true that there are certain departments that are having trouble retaining employees more than other departments? And I don't want to offend any employees, but I just want to fill positions. I mean, would we consider higher bonuses or a sign-on bonus for other departments where we really have a need?
I mean, if you look across the board, I think it's going to be pretty, I mean, Public Works is having a hard time right now, especially in the streets department. They've had some turnover, like people transferring to other departments. You know, a lot of the ones we're seeing are transferring in the city just for higher paying jobs because they come in those entry-level jobs. But I don't think you would find one department other than probably Public Works because they have the highest number of employees that have probably more vacancies than Public Works would.
And I guess we're working on, in the upcoming budget, doing some things to increase pay to keep people from, going to another government.
We are. I have.
City or county or some other.
We are. We have.
In the same role.
Yeah, we are. We're trying. I mean, but obviously, I mean, I think our salary schedule is competitive with everybody else. Some of the personnel actions that you're going to see before you tonight are things where we've been able to compare ourselves to other municipalities, look at the way that, our competitors here in the area, the way they're kind of streamlining things and the way they're looking at pay. And so we have been able to increase some of that pay and the pay grades going to the personnel board and kind of pleading that case. So you'll see some of that before you tonight.
Council, any other discussion on this issue? All right. Hearing none, we'll move on. All right, item number 2 is committee updates. Councilman Burrell.
I have none.
Councilman Martin.
I don't have anything.
Jimmy.
No update.
Kevin. All right.
Eventful week.
I'll say this, I believe that at our next city council work session, we are going to be presented maybe with a revised copy of the historic preservation ordinance to discuss. So that will be on September 11th. And hopefully that will be in a spot then that if we're comfortable with, we can maybe get that on the next agenda if we're ready after discussing it at that point. All right. Next, department head updates. Come one, come all, and if you got something on the agenda, let's talk about it.
I briefly mentioned this on the last council meeting during public participation. Item 14, got to replace some equipment. I've got replacement equipment budgeted for next year, and I was hoping to make it to October, but this equipment is malfunctioning. There's some kind of hardware issue with it that causes this equipment to randomly reboot, and when it does, we lose basically all data for about 5 to 10 minutes. That includes phones and internet, everything. So this is kind of an emergency purchase, unbudgeted, but I do have money to cover it in my computer budget per
What
IT.
item are you, Jeff?
14.
Sir?
Sorry, okay.
14, yes, sir. All right. Any questions?
Council, any questions for Jeff on item number 14?
No. Okay, well, thank you.
So, Kim, are we still doing a tally of all the unbudgeted numbers that we have? I mean, we're getting a whole heck of a lot of them, and it's been really consistent. We've talked about this in the past, but I just want to kind of bring it up again, just so that we're not losing sight.
Yeah, I have a spreadsheet I can send y'all that's taken every green sheet that comes forward here in the
Okay, thank you.
The other thing I'll mention too about that, Councilman Martin, is we've been really good, and usually when they stand in front of you, they'll say, I've taken money from this, we've made budget adjustments to cover it, and Kim's the one who has to approve that along with myself. We get an electronic copy that we can sign off on and look to see where they're swapping money from, just to make sure that we're staying within in the overall budget of the department. And y'all gave her that authority, I think, at the beginning of this fiscal year.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right. I got 22 agenda items. I know somebody's got something.
Well, before I discuss any agenda items, I do kind of want to, I know that during the different budget meetings we've had in small group settings, we've mentioned about recycling and about planning some dollars there for some marketing and everything else. Dale and I had the pleasure of spending the last 3 days of last week with the Alabama Recycling Coalition. Good news is combined Baldwin County brought back $743,000 that's going to the material recovery facility at Baldwin County. As you recall, y'all approved us submitting an 8M grant for a forklift for that. We received that as well. And considering that fund issued $7.4 million statewide and we took 10% of it home for this county is a good thing. I will tell you it's very exciting that there's some bright future in recycling right now, because it's kind of been a dim 35 years and we've had a pretty tough row of it dealing with the ECUA. I will kind of give you an update. Baldwin County did open the bids. That facility is $22 million. They are going to issue the contract, I think, at the next commission meeting, and as well as about $6.5 million worth of equipment to go in it. So they're making about a $30 million investment in the long-term sustainability and resiliency of a recycling program in the county. So that's very exciting. And I will tell you that the biggest challenge is that, originally they thought that they would be open and running in the first calendar, at the end of the first quarter of the calendar year. Now they're saying June. I'm not sure if they can have a $30 million facility up and running in basically 9 months, but we're cheering them on. The good news is we kind of painted ourselves into a corner. Baldwin County is going to host the Alabama Recycling Coalition this time next year, and the key thing is they're all going to tour an operating MRF at Baldwin County Solid Waste in Magnolia Springs. So at least we know that in a year we're going to have egg on our face if we're not up and running by that time. I will tell you probably the biggest things that we'll be talking with you about going into the new budget year and kind of preparing for the new recycling program is, part of the key thing that we've got to achieve in recycling is first access. And as a city and as a recycling program, we have pretty good access, meaning that we do curbside pickup for every residential customer. But can that access be better? Yes. We are a little hit and miss with our business enterprises out there and looking at, working with them, especially on cardboard and other valuable commodities. And then the other area that we're just completely kind of taking a swing and a miss at is we don't have access or a program for multifamily. And unfortunately, or fortunately, there's a lot of multifamily development that has occurred, that exists, and is planned in our area. And so we're going to be looking at that. The other area that we just do not do, and that we're going to have to make a big part of the coming up year and continuing, is education. You just can't hand them a bin and then forget about it, okay? You've got to have not only some education about what the program is all about, what we take, how we take it, what's done with it, but then there's got to be ongoing, meaning we're going to have to work with our schools and do outreach and things like that and explain our program in Fairhope as well as that. And then as a further step of that is continuing engagement, why it is important to recycle, okay? And, for us, I think there are environmental benefits. The other thing is that the longer our sanitary landfill lasts is better for us as a community, because one day, and probably the future, when a new line landfill has to be permitted, the days of a $30 tipping fee is going to be over with. It could be significantly higher. So the longer that system, that current facility lasts, the better it is for us economically, sustainability, And, what's the chances that Baldwin County in 20 years from now would be able to permit a sanitary landfill in Baldwin County? So it could be a remote location with a cost to haul to and things of that nature. So that's kind of the engagement. Why is it important? Every item that we divert out of the sanitary landfill that can be repurposed, reused, recycled is extending the lifespan of that for us and everything else. So I'm excited. I think the challenge that we're going to have as your sanitation department is we are not experts in engagement. We're not experts in marketing, but we're going to work really hard to learn. And the good news is we have people like Paige and Courtney and Nicole and folks like that are more comfortable in that world, and we're going to lean on them hard, as well as we're going to use hopefully that budget money, if you see fit, to engage some folks that have that. The good news is that ADM has made it very clear to us that they love the fact that there's been a cooperative effort in Baldwin County to get this MRF up and running, and they've kind of indicated that they're going to be there as a funder for the long haul to help that be not only successful but sustainable. So just very excited about that, and I know we tend to bring bad news about recycle. It's time that we talk about some good news, and unfortunately, it can't get here fast enough. We've still got probably about 6 to 9 months of dealing with the current situation we're in, but I can't wait for it to get open. And one thing I will do when we have another slow work session, Baldwin County has a great visual slideshow of what they're doing there, and understand. Most people think of a reclamation facility like this as just a big old metal building that's usually kind of dingy and dirty and loud and noisy. This facility is really first class, and it has an outreach and educational component. Imagine a recycling exploring attached to this, and $350,000 of the ADM money is just for the interior of this for school children and folks to come in and learn, and it's going to have all kind of recycling interactive games and activities for the school kids, and it's really, really, really impressive. So this is going to be something to be proud of as a community and as a county, and ultimately it's going to give us a reliable place to take our recyclables to know that they're getting into the commodity market and getting reused, repurposed, and recycled. So it's just an exciting time, and I asked Terry Graham to get me that presentation, and I'll share it with the clerk, and when we have a slower work session, I'd love to let you see those slides, because it's an impressive facility that they're building there. So excited about that, and finally some good news on the recycling front, and we're going to keep leaning forward and really the challenge I've made to our team is that for many years we've run a recycling operation. Now it's time to get back to actually having a recycling program, and that's more than just the mechanics of picking something up and moving it to someplace else. It is that education and engagement and looking at opportunity for expanding access to everybody who would want to participate. So that's kind of my report on recycling, and I'm excited about it, and we just hadn't had probably 10 years where we've had anything exciting about recycling to talk about, so it's about time, and that's exciting. On the agenda, I don't have that much. I can speak to the roof replacement for the Quail Creek Maintenance Barn, if you have any questions there. Again, as you know, that's a pre-engineered metal building, and it is just time to replace the roof on it. The other one I can speak to, and this is kind of a procedural thing that we discussed a little bit last month, is by the end of August every month, we have to have kind of a road paving plan or master plan that would allocate the rights to use that additional Rebuild Alabama gas tax dollars on resurfacing. So you see kind of a master list. That means that any of those roads in the next year would be qualified to spend that money on, and that's really all that we're doing. And then we will be providing a report on a yearly basis of what roads we did pave, and we're pretty much using 100% of that money every year, and then some. Also, Council President knows that we did request an item to walk on. As you know, we have over the years been continuously working on the replacement of the drainage on Fells Avenue. This is one of the last segments that is what we call the west end. We were hoping that we had enough money left in the drainage budget. We went out for bid on this, and it came in a little higher. We kind of sat on it, but unfortunately, these last few couple of rain showers that we've had has caused a further sinkhole. We've lost some curbing on there, and so we need to move forward. We're not 100% budget funded. I think we're short about $13,000 on what we had remaining in the budget, but it's not going to get any better, and if we don't move on it and wait till the new budget year out, it's probably going to be a more expensive project. So we'd like your consideration there to fund that, and that will basically, we will be brand-new drainage all the way from George to South Mobile with this phase of the project.
And council, just so y'all are aware, we do have approximately $64,000 or $63,381 in the budget for this, which is right at $14,000 over budget. And my understanding, Richard, you can help me, is, I think you just mentioned some sinkholes, and so I think there's, from at least my understanding, maybe a safety issue that needs
Yes,
to.
we
sort of
lost a stretch of curb.
More
the last
immediate
storm.
attention, which is
Yes.
why, one of the reasons why this was kind of put on here now to walk on. Yeah.
Richard, was the roof unbudgeted? Or are we gonna extend that from last year's budget? How are we doing the roof?
That's a great question, Councilman. Do you know where the,
Says it's over budget by 49,000, so I'm not budgeted. My question is going to be, why wasn't it budgeted?
That's what I'm asking, yeah.
My understanding, it was not budgeted, but my understanding is leaking every time it rains, they've got equipment.
So we're considering, because I looked at the green sheet, it doesn't have emergency. I would rather it be marked emergency. That just lets us know. You're telling us now, but it wasn't marked emergency, so I'm considering it's emergency because of damage.
My understanding, and George, they want to speak more on it, but that's what was told to me, is we got some equipment that's being.
And Council President, if I may expand on this.
Please, go ahead.
So when we get an expense like this $49,000 just out of the blue, it's unbudgeted, so we don't, why can't it be brought up at the previous work session and say, all right, that way we have a moment to go check it out for ourselves if we want to, instead of just, we just toss around $50,000 like it's 10 cents around this room, and then.
We're at 80,000 now.
I don't have a doubt that, it might need a roof, but we may go take a look at it and think otherwise. When it's on an agenda and it's unbudgeted, I think actually, if you really want to know the truth about it, the council rules say for these expenditures, they have to go before the council first. We don't really enforce that, but sometimes I feel like, pushing that button and saying, no, it's got to be brought up before. And this is a prime example of something that could have been brought before us in a work session and said, let's, consider it maybe next meeting. My opinion, anyway.
and I asked your forgiveness, how it works when we in Public Works under facility maintenance work with other departments. They say, hey, we got to replace this roof. Will you put a spec together and get it out and get us 3 prices? So we're just kind of the facilitators. I probably should ask. Generally there's a project worksheet that's filled out that's supposed to show where the money's coming from, and I don't necessarily see that part of it. I just get them the contractors and the prices and all put together. So
Is it a Public Works item, or is it a golf course maintenance item? How does that?
It's a golf course maintenance.
So,
Yeah.
okay. Bobby should
So
come to the
Bobby
meeting
should.
and
Well,
say work session.
technically-
Say, I'm gonna bring this before.
Technically, it'd be Pat or Tom, because it's the maintenance shed.
and if it does help your feelings a little bit, George and I had a big walkthrough with our roofing contractor yesterday, and we got a request for a change order that's a savings of $26,000 on this roof. So
Well, I saw for a roof, I was thinking, I don't know the square footage of this particular facility, but I thought if it's a normal roof, that 49 was a good deal, but it was just unbudgeted. I was just wondering where we're getting the money from. We already had 23,000 that was unbudgeted, and now 49,000 in 5 minutes, so.
And I guess I thought too, because there were actually 2 roofs. I know I pulled one, there was this one, but I was under the impression that they were going to be in next year's budget, that we were going to try to get them done in the next, like, button up to the next year's budget. Is that not correct?
Again,
Matt, do you know?
I was not privy to the information on the move to
Okay. And if y'all want to hold off on this and let me check on it, I'm fine to do that. But that
It's
was my
$50,000.
understanding. Yeah.
I
I mean, we can do
that's
that. That's not a big deal.
significant, in my
But it is,
opinion.
I know it is leaking. I have
Yeah, I
gone to
mean,
look
yeah.
at it.
What's that now?
And it's in pretty bad shape.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
It's in pretty bad shape, but
Well, I guess my question would be, Kim, you mentioned it's leaking on equipment. I
It
mean,
is.
are we risking damaging
More things.
equipment that's going to cost us more than we may save by maintenance?
It's just they didn't mark emergency. That's
yeah,
why I was
and it
asking.
had, it obviously has not rained a ton. I mean,
Correct.
so we all know that,
Winter
but,
time,
Well, we're
but
hoping,
again,
we're hoping
it
that there's
rains
lots of
more, yeah.
exposure coming
But
any
it's
day now.
not, it's not only just equipment too. I mean, it's people that are in there working on stuff at the
Right.
maintenance barn. So, I mean, it is in bad shape. But again, I was under the impression that we were budgeting for it next budget time. And we were just going to be ready to act on it.
Typically, something that large construction-wise
Yeah.
gets in the budget.
Budget. Yeah, that's why I was curious. That's all.
and we may have outrun our coverage. We just got
Yeah.
asked, will you get
Well,
us
that's why we're
a
here,
spec,
to look out
spec
for
and
each
get a
other.
roof replaced on this building, and we just did what we were asked, so.
No, God bless you, man. We're here to look out for each other. No harm, no foul, but, we have to ask those questions.
I understand. All right, thank you, council.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Richard.
Maybe if we don't fix it, it'll rain.
Correct.
All right. To give y'all a little bit of where Mayor and I have been the last couple of days, we have had the honor of hosting the Alabama Governor's Conference on Tourism here in Fairhope and Point Clear, alongside the Eastern Shore Chamber of Commerce, the Grand Hotel, and Visit Mobile. So we've had a lovely 2.5 days welcoming over 200 tourism professionals to our area, which is a great time for us to highlight all the wonderful things we do here that folks are trying to mimic across the state. So we had a great time, and attendees were very complimentary of our area. Of course, the state tourism lease and tell director did say they were obviously complimentary every time they get to come to the Grand Hotel, but they said, we begged to host this conference. It's been almost a decade since we've hosted this conference here. And they said, in 35 years, we have never sold this many hotel rooms for a conference. So it was like 75 or 100 hotel rooms over what the norm is for this conference. So we were very excited to hear that, and obviously to welcome these folks to our area. So great time there. But I've got a couple things on the agenda tonight. One, number 16, which we have spoken at a work session as well with y'all about the Arts Alley and the professional services contract with Hannah Legg on the murals over there. So if y'all got any questions on that, I'll be happy to answer those. Couple things on the end of the agenda. Chief and I have been working for these requests for the streets for the homecoming parade on September the 21st, which we don't see any issues with that. We're going to stage folks here at the Civic Center parking lot, and they're going to run down Section Street, take a right on Fairhope Avenue, and end at the Fairhope Pier with their bonfire, which we're excited to have the homecoming parade back here in downtown Fairhope. And of course, they're going to be alongside the 100th anniversary committee, so they're going to be representing each decade, I think, by float, in downtown Fairhope. So that should be a great time here. So y'all mark your calendars and be sure to check that out.
It's been, 5 years?
It's at least probably, yeah.
It's been a minute. I forgot about it.
Um,
Well, I'm just saying, out of mind, out of sight, out of mind.
That's right. And then 25, we have sat down with the folks from the Fairhope Witches Ride, Leslie Edgmond with the Humane Society, who has now taken over that project, of course. So Chief and I, as well as Shane Nolte, have sat down, and we don't see any issues. I will say, one of the things that we did internally request, they have requested a 5 p.m. street closure across the board and I believe they're trying to roll at 6 p.m. that night. But there is a portion of the street that internally we would like to bump up to 3:30, and that is on Bancroft from Fairhope Avenue to probably at least Magnolia Avenue. And so once Leslie had already submitted her paperwork, I told her, that was something that I could obviously ask if we could bump up that section of the street to 3:30. And of course, it would be her responsibility to let those merchants and business owners know that we will be closing that portion at 3:30 if that is approved tonight. So, and I'd be happy to answer any questions on that. And the last thing I did want to bring up, we do have First Friday Art Walk this Friday night, and I know we did speak to a couple of merchants about 3 or 4 months back about the closure on Fairhope Avenue. We've had some mixed, I wouldn't say we've had any kind of overwhelming response as far as the closure goes. We've heard a little bit on both sides. So, of course, they would like a group of them would like to continue that closure on Fairhope Avenue. And PD, I don't know if Chief can speak to that, if she's got any concerns as far as on the PD side of things. But they would like to continue that. They would like to continue to have bands on the streets and encourage those folks to come out on First Friday Art Walk nights on Fairhope Avenue. So we're just kind of looking for some direction as far as what y'all would like to see, if y'all would like to continue the closure on Fairhope Avenue, what y'all's thoughts are on that.
I'd like to see it continue at least. I mean, they've had it like the hottest months of the year, right? So,
They have, and
July. Good or bad. I mean, it could prove that in better weather, more people, it's problems, or I think we ought to do a little larger sampling of it.
They had 2 good months, I believe, a pretty good turnout for the June, and I believe this last one, they had a pretty good one. But the July one, I think, was a rain out, so that one obviously wasn't a good measure. But they have been booking some rather large bands that attract a good crowd, and I think a lot of the business owners more so have had a great impact, not as much I feel like the restaurants would like to see the street open. That's what we're kind of hearing as far as consensus from the restaurants.
I think maybe some of that is caused by the disruption of the arts alley, and so their clients don't maybe have as convenient a place to park in front. They can't get to a parking garage. A lot of people still don't realize it's open, and that's, as much as we've tried to tell them. And I think maybe some of that anxiety's from that
Parking
project that's
garage.
going on too.
Paige, have we had any issues since the street's closed of people trying to come in and set up their own booth on the street or sort of?
We really haven't, so that's been okay as far as that goes. We did have some code enforcement officers out, I think, at the July Art Walk. June or July we did, and so I think it's cleaned up a little bit since then. So we haven't really had any issues on that, so which is great.
You said there were bands out, or just
Those
on the
are
street?
they're
Or
on
just
private
people?
property, so we have told them that they have to kind of stay off the street. With Fairhope Avenue being a main thoroughfare, I mean, internally we've kind of met, and for safety, we've put water barricades there on Fairhope Avenue, with it obviously being a main artery through town. So they have kept them on private property right there at that Truist Bank is, I think, where they've been setting up. And we have power there, so it's worked out well. So I will say everybody, I mean, now they do set up in the street as far as people congregating,
But not the band.
not the band. So.
Jimmy, Kevin, any input?
I don't mind letting them continue having a few months, see how they do, but if you're just getting a few responses, and people that are,
I would imagine for the restaurants at least, it probably does create at least some burden with people not being able to park right in front of their restaurants on Friday night. But if you're a business that's typically not attracting a whole lot of foot traffic on a Friday night, it's probably beneficial to you in some way. Chief, my question would be, from a police standpoint, has there been any sort of traffic issue? I mean, other than just an inconvenience, any kind of safety problems associated with the street being closed?
No, we haven't had any problems at all.
Okay.
I don't really think that the people not being able to park in front of the business would decrease their business, but I don't have those metrics in front of me because, it's a pedestrian connectivity thing, and you can walk about downtown all day long. I don't see why that would be an issue.
I know, no, I mean, I'm not saying it keeps them from being able to eat there, but if you're
Right.
driving around downtown Fairhope on a Friday night and you got one restaurant with a spot right in front and one of them you got to park 2 streets over, a lot of people are just going to eat at the one they can park right in front of. Depends on how bad you want to go there.
I think it'll flow, but you're right, point duly noted.
But I'm perfectly fine, me personally, continuing it and, getting a bigger sample size to see if it's something we should continue moving forward.
And if the businesses are having problems, please have them speak up. Like, we're not we're not judging them. We want to know what, if there's a problem, speak up, If it's not a problem, then say it's not a problem, but we would like to get some feedback.
They don't call us either, they just post it on social media.
Yeah, but see, I'm talking publicly because I don't want them to do that. I want them to just reach out and say it's a problem, and we'll work with you. Jay, you can hear something, right?
Yeah, I haven't really, hey. No, I hadn't really heard any feedback. That's why I'm asking. I hadn't heard a lot of feedback one way or the other.
Okay.
All right. So I guess, it's what, end of August? Do we want to revisit this?
I would say give them till the end of the year, to be honest.
Yeah.
Give them to December and we'll see how it goes.
And
We
it-
remember, we don't have it in December because of,
Okay.
because it's the Christmas break. So
Yeah,
we'll
and-
just have it till
Give it to
January.
January.
And obviously, if there's some issue that comes up in any of these in the next, month or two before that time comes, let us know and we can revisit it. Thank y'all.
All right, well, while I'm up here, I do have, it's currently number 18 on the agenda. It's the MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding about our school resource officers. If we had originally, I'd asked them to originally pull this, or for y'all to pull it. We had some terminology in there that I asked, or I went and talked to the sheriff and asked him if we could work on that. And I wasn't sure if it was going to be back in time, but it actually came in today. So I asked that you put it back on the agenda.
All right, Lisa, remind me again what terminology was
Is this the
changed?
correct one?
Yeah, this is,
Here?
Overseeing was changed to assistance.
okay.
So the one that's the hard copy is
Yeah.
the correct one?
Yeah, this is
Yes.
the
That is
right
the
one.
correct one.
Okay. So if y'all didn't hear Lisa,
It was.
we've changed
It
the
wasn't.
word
Okay.
overseeing to assistance.
I wasn't sure.
All right, council, anybody have any questions for Chief on this? And Chief, if you would, just explain to us briefly what this memo is designed to accomplish.
It's basically, it just outlines the goals, the purpose of the MOU, our purpose for being in the schools, that we're going to put an officer in each school. We're working with the county to make sure that all of our goals are achieved, and then what we're going to provide in return for our students.
Okay. Council, any questions on this issue, on this agenda item? All right,
All right, thank you.
thank you.
Good evening. I do have items 7, 8, and 9, and you'll forgive me. Seem to be losing my voice. It's not contagious, right? This is part of the same project, so this is one of the 3 original Restore projects for the comprehensive plan. There were 3 components that was awarded during that. There was the grant management, there was the GIS component, and then there was the planning. This is a year extension request for all 3 of those. They were kind of awarded at different times. If you have any questions, I can certainly fill you in on anything and kind of why we're asking for this extension.
Yeah.
10 part of that package too?
Was it 10? Sorry, I might have said the
7,
wrong.
8, 9.
No, 7, 8, 9, and 10, it looks like.
Yeah.
And is this asking for just for a year extension on all of them, Hunter? Is that the?
That's it.
It is, and we do not intend to utilize that full year. What happened, and there was a change, I think, what might have sent out in the original resolution, draft resolution, had a date of original award of December 2020. And Councilman Boone and Councilman Burrell will remember this. We actually had some guidance from ACD and what's that? Thank you, please, thank you. That we did our original evaluations incorrectly and had to go back out. So it wasn't until May when they were originally awarded. We lost some months there. By the time everybody got together with their subs, we didn't really kick off the project until July of 2021. And there's two main components of this project. There's the comp plan. Our goal, for your information, is we have that approved by February. So before the end of the year, we will hopefully, at a work session of the council, we'll have the comp plan team coming in to present those concepts, and then that'll give us a couple of months if we need to tweak things and have the comp plan approved. Then we moved to the second part of this, which was actually updating our policies and ordinances to reach those goals. And that's kind of where we needed the extension. I think you've all served on the planning commission in making zoning amendments. Just a couple of lines can take some time, much less what may impact our whole zoning ordinance and the subdivision regulations. So we thought best to go ahead and ask for this extension, have it if we need it. And then kind of the other aspect of what's delaying this, so at times I feel a little bit like Charlie Brown while somebody's holding the football and you run up and try to kick it. Our comp plan is to figure out how we want to grow long-term. And with some of the changes, not initiated by anyone here, with the jurisdiction, that's kind of moving our target and what we're going to be looking at. So that's certainly added some delays and pivoting on what we're putting that and how we're kind of constructing that long-range plan. But if there's any other questions, I'll be happy to answer those.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Hunter.
Yes, sir.
So before I jump on my one agenda item, just a couple updates. Mayor Sullivan has reached out to me Sunday evening, and John Hand had reached out to her with ECA. He's our mutual aid agreement. And Gainesville requested us to come back down there again. So we sent a crew of 8 with 5 trucks this morning. So I think they got down there around 4 o'clock today. So everybody's made it safe and sound. So they're just pre-staging for what comes next. So, but it's always, we appreciate everybody letting us go down there because everybody knows what happens when it hits here. It's nice to have somebody waiting to come here to help us. So.
Absolutely.
And it actually feels good. They requested us, so it's 2 years in a row that they've requested us to come back down there. So that was makes you feel pretty good about yourself. So the other one is the level 3 chargers come in for our fast chargers, AMEA grant for them and ADECA. So hopefully we're going to start working on that this week. Sort of shorthanded, but we will go ahead and start getting pipe in at the.
Was it the shopping center?
Yes, sir. It is. So we can go ahead and start getting the primary in.
Which shopping center?
Right out
The
there.
square?
Yeah, it's pretty much behind the old Ruby Tuesdays.
Plantation.
So, and then we're taking an island out of it. We've worked with the owners of that property, and we're going first 2, and then future we'll get 2 more. So we have everything in now, and we're going to start working on that and try to wrap it up before the end of the year. So on that, that's all I got on updates. I do have number 12. It is a budgeted item, and it was part of the 5-year plan. And to get more bang for the buck, we're actually going to do this project ourselves, and we're going to replace 10 poles instead of the 5. So
Putting lights on Dyer Road?
it's the power, the 46 line going down there. Those big
Still
big
no
weathers.
lights on Dyer Road?
We'll work. We'll put them in there on this one.
Okay, all right. Good. It's dark
We'll
as
light
heck
the whole
over
road
there.
up for you.
All right, cool.
So-
It's dark over there. Have y'all driven Dyer Road?
And then we'll get a call out like.
Well, I'm saying.
That's right.
It's midnight over there, boss.
So no,
You
we'll
can see
light it
stars.
up. But all those in front of the church, we're going to replace all those poles. We're going to go back taller, and they're actually going to be the right size poles this time.
Okay, very good.
But we're going to do all that project in-house.
like it.
Any questions?
I guess, you know, there's a 10% contingency. If we go out and sign a contract with them that says, you have
That
a
is-
6-month price confirmation, looks like we're going maybe a little bit more than 6 weeks, 6 months, potentially more than 6 months, is that why we're putting a contingency on?
Freight charge on it. And I'm hoping it doesn't happen, but I'd rather go ahead and put it in here than coming back in front of y'all.
Oh, it's gonna be on there now, because they're watching.
So,
Well, you're kind of stuck in a damned if you do, if you don't put it
You have to
on.
do it, but
it is. And I wish we could get them quick. I wish we could send a truck to get them, but, you know, it was actually, sit down and put pen to paper. It was cheaper for us to go ahead and get all these poles than it was just do the 5 poles and let a contractor come in here and do it, so. And this is gonna tie in with that 46 loop too, so we're trying to do our part, and then the contractors come and do the 46.
All right, council, any other questions for Mr. Patterson?
All right.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank y'all.
Good afternoon. I've got 2 items, 11 and 22. 11 is Doghouse Lift Station. Kimley Horn has won the engineering firm award for that project.
Council, this is the remainder of the ARPA funds that we received, so this will be the second lift station that we rehab using those ARPA funds.
All right, council, any questions on item number 11?
Yeah, Mayor, as far as the aesthetics on this house, we're gonna make it pretty? Or is it just gonna be like?
I don't know how pretty you can make a lift station, but it
what
won't
I'm
look like.
talking about, 'cause it's where it is.
Yes,
It's right
yeah.
there, and I didn't know if we're gonna do
It's
anything.
it's going to be an in-ground station.
Yeah,
That's
so
gonna
you
be-
won't be able to see.
So that old house gonna be gone
Yes.
that's there now?
Yes. it will
Okay,
be.
that's
It
what
will
I'm
be.
asking. Yeah.
What's the estimated cost for the pump station, the lift station?
I don't have those numbers offhand.
Is it over 1.9 million? So our fees for professional engineering services are what? 18%?
Yes, sir.
That doesn't strike you as high?
Considering the services we're getting.
What's the services that we're getting?
We've had-
What makes it be worth, 5% more than normal?
Kimley Horn has done a good job for the city in past projects and current projects.
So we like y'all, so we pay you more. It seems a little steep to me.
Okay.
They know we have ARPA funds, and so price is high. But I think we gotta quit doing this. We gotta quit doing it, people. We gotta quit.
We also have to, we need to do the upgrades. And I understand that 12 to 15%, but it's, and you don't,
Is this outside, this percentage outside of what we've paid in other engineering projects?
it is not.
It's-
I would have to look across the
16%.
board. I would have to look across the board,
It's a little bit.
but it's not much.
But
I mean-
it's outside.
What was the total cost again?
1.2. It's 16%.
It's 1.18,200. Unless I'm looking at the wrong number.
Councilman Boone, what used to be typical?
I always thought it was somewhere around 10-12% myself, but now I've been out for a while, so. I don't know what they've been charging here lately.
So it's 25%. You're looking at 12, or.
It used to be 8, but I know it's gone up from that.
30% over the north.
8 to 9%, so that's around 12%.
Yeah, it used to, I've seen 7%. Not saying that it would also be that low, that's pretty low, that's a very low end, but not unheard of. I think Fairhope's got a bad habit of saying yes to everything we see on the numbers. I think people know that. And maybe they look at it, it's not our money on this, it's our money. But sooner or later, we gotta put our foot down.
Is this a bidding process?
Corey, Jimmy, y'all got any questions or thoughts on this?
No, good. Did we bid this? We had to bid this out, correct?
We did a request for qualifications.
It's just our professional services, you can't.
Okay.
Well, the one thing I will say is if we are starting to get costs that exceed what the accepted standard price is, then we really need to we need to scrutinize those a little more. I mean, obviously, you develop a relationship with certain companies that do good work, and it's easy to go back to them and give them the work because you trust them, because they've proven to be reliable. But if we start seeing costs that far exceed what's, again, industry norm, then we got to look elsewhere.
Fair enough.
And I don't know. I mean, I can't sit here and say this is over or not. I don't know that. But if it is, then that's something we need to pay a little more attention to.
I will say this, to me, the percentage is a little higher, but, I've never worked with these people, but I'll go with Daryl's saying. In a lot of situations, you do pay, it's not a function because we're friends with us, because they do quality work. For instance, my company, when I was in business, they paid me a little bit higher percentage than what most, because they knew when I came in, it was a lock and key job. You could go to bed at night and sleep very well at night. You had any problems, and they paid for that. And so a lot of times that may be an issue. I can't say it isn't this particular case, but a lot of times that is an issue. That you pay for the services.
But do we set the standard at the standard, or do we allow people to say, well, 16%, if the standard is 10 to 15, but since we do good work, we're going to give it to you for 16% and not question it because they do good work? And so is that for everybody across the board that does good work?
Well, cases.
I mean, my thought would be, let's assume you've got, you can include any profession in this, and say you've got Pool A, which are the best people at what they do, and, because we're so good and there's such a demand for our service, we get to charge that 15, 16%. And then you got the middle tier that they're really good. They're not as good as these guys, but they do good work, and people like to use them. They charge 12%.
Right.
Because they don't have the opportunity to turn people away like Pool A does. And then you got Pool C, which is, maybe we show up, maybe we don't, but we only charge 8%.
Sure.
And so you get what you pay for.
And
or sometimes you don't get what you don't pay for.
I agree.
That's a pretty extreme example for people that.
I think it's, I'm just saying it's in the realm of things that we have to consider when choosing who we choose to do business with.
Correct.
Cheapest price ain't always the best option.
I could see what the people who did the Fells Avenue lift station charged and go back and look at that percentage.
Yeah.
What company was that, Mayor? You remember? I can't remember.
Mayor, what, I'm sorry, what did you say?
She said she can go back and look at
Fells
it.
Avenue engineer.
Who did Fells Avenue engineering?
I don't think she has it handy, but she said she can go check.
Look,
Just making a point.
It's a point that I'm making. I
Did
mean,
they do the work?
like the engineer,
No,
know the
no.
engineer personally very well.
How long ago?
But
The one prior to
I
this.
missed that one.
I'm saying 12,
I don't think it takes that much. And Chuck, I love you, brother.
That's
but I just-
4% higher
I
than
think
used to. I know that.
I think that,
Well, this is double. But again, I know it's gone up.
All right. Gary, you got another one on here, you said?
I do. Number 22, we'd like to do a cross-connect utility, a water utility with Daphne Utilities.
So,
And if I could speak to this also, Daryl and I have been talking to Daphne, and they have agreed to a cost share on this. They don't think that it'll be more than $25,000 for both of us, and that's probably a little bit on the high end because asphalt, that kind of, we have to do the road cut and everything, but we really think we're gonna, come in a little bit lower than the amount in the agenda, on the agenda.
so this is, can you explain this a little bit, right here, what we're doing?
Yeah,
I
so
think I understand, but yeah.
Right, so it's going to be a what they call a bidirectional metered cross-connect. So we're going to help each other out. So if they're in times of need, we can give them water. If we're in times of need, they can give us. This is not an online water line. It's going to be closed until we absolutely, it's a last resort. It's an
Water
absolute.
project.
I'm sorry?
So it's a water project. It's-
Correct.
It gets
Yes.
us access to,
It's a water project.
To Daphne Utilities water. And it-
500,000 gallons.
Yeah, we can get up to 500,000 gallons a
Yeah,
day.
sample.
Mhm.
Right. And legally, do we come into any legal issues with the cross-lining?
No,
As far as the Water Act and
I contacted
testing
ADEM.
and-
No, I contacted ADEM, and all they require is, the next time we have to renew our permit, it states in there that we have a connection to another utility. And that's all that's required on the legal water side, anyway.
Okay.
Are you asking from a chemical standpoint?
Yeah, just, that seems, when we start mixing waters,
There
it
is,
just seems
there,
a little bit
there,
more in-depth than just tap into it.
we do know that there could be some chemical imbalance. We're aware of that we're gonna have to deal with, and that it
Okay.
could create some brown water issues.
Right.
But
That's-
again, this would be last resort. This could be fire safety. This could be some, not necessarily drinking water.
Okay, so that's what I was trying to pull
Yeah,
out
yeah,
there.
so, right.
I've read it, so, yeah, okay.
And we are fortunate to have a Daphne utility water operator we just hired, and he knows all about Daphne's water, so he,
Who might that guy be?
so,
The other thing is water quality standards are across the board as far
Yes.
as, we may add a
Yeah,
little
but-
bit something there that they don't add, or they may add a little
Right.
something. It's not towards health or unhealthy water.
yeah.
Yeah,
And all the testing procedures are across the board, pretty much statewide. It's
yeah,
nationwide, probably.
yeah, I get it.
California.
It's just, I get it. I get it. You just have to cross your T's, dot your I's, when you start blending with others. And, it's all, just
Yeah.
making sure that we're. on
I understand,
top of that.
and,
Considered all that.
yeah, we've reached out and considered everything we could think of how and why.
Yeah.
So,
okay?
that's all I got. Any more questions?
Any other questions? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And Jack, just going back to what we're talking about the engineering, I'm agreeing with you that if we are getting singularly charged more than industry standard is, no matter how good somebody is, then I got a problem with that. But if, like I said, if it's a tiered system of who gets paid what, and we're choosing the higher tier because of reliability, then I think that's a different issue.
But I think you and I could probably reel off 4 or 5 names that are all capable of doing this job.
Yeah, well, and that's my point. My point is if those 4 or 5 that would immediately come to mind would charge the same thing, then I got no problem with it. But if there's a big gap, then I think there's
It's
more
probably not a
discussion.
huge gap. If the 16% was a little bit less, and it's probably a little bit more than 16% if it's 1.18, but it's a little bit less of than what I was thinking when I first ran the number through my head, but it's free money, and I don't know if we, if they know the budget or what we have, and they're trying to fit that in. There's a tendency to do that with grant money and free government money. I think that, we spend it, right? You get the job done, you got the money, they say, we'll give you to do it, and then they accept it. There's some of that, maybe, potentially.
I don't disagree with you. Kim?
I have two items on here. Number 17, if you'll remember, last meeting and during work session, PFM came and did a presentation. And what I'm asking for is for us to hire them as a financial advisor, where they'd be able to help me with putting together some plans for y'all to be able to have options. I didn't know if y'all had any more questions on that I can try to answer for you.
Yeah, I saw that the proposal was purported that we want to do it annually. Like, we just wanted, are we trying to, do we need them annually?
Well,
It's an annual cost, whether we do it more than once, 1 year, I think is debatable.
you could do it by the project, for the project.
Yes, that's.
And I really didn't get any feedback either way. I mean, it's y'all's decision, but it would be nice to be able to have them on an annual, and let's just see this
No, I
year,
mean,
because
yeah, I'm saying we don't have to do it every year. I thought that's what you meant, that it's a recurring
What I'm saying, we're
expense.
paying an annual cost instead of doing a project cost.
Yeah, but
And do we need to do an annual cost for
I
a
thought the
project?
project cost ended up being more expensive. I thought that was the way it broke
I
out.
think we asked about whether or not there was, how often do you need advice outside of the scope of one particular project? It sounded like that more than likely this was going to wind up being the cheaper option if you looked at.
yeah, and there's
entirety of the year.
other things that come up that I could utilize their service. I mean, we're looking at, be able to put some 5-year plans together on general government. I know y'all have got a bunch of other projects, just being able to put some other things together. If I needed to call them and ask them, let's say about some rates, where our investments are, it's just being able to have them on retainer, I'd be able to utilize that. And that's the reason I put it in there. It's y'all's decision if you would want it for a specific project or if we wanted to have them for a whole year of service. I just thought we could get more bang for the buck being able to utilize that.
If you look at page 10 of the presentation that's in your book, it will tell you that technically if you did it on the one engagement, it probably ends up costing you a little bit more in the long run. If you chose to use them probably more than one time, versus if you do it annually and you engage them several times.
And they have training opportunities too, and that's helpful for me and my staff too, that they have training.
So did we vet any other companies to compare rates on this?
No, it was the direction that I got was there was a company that I knew, I've worked with, and that's what I brought to the table. And I'm just trying to, we've got to put a plan together for the utilities because we're continuing to move. And, Mr. Martin, you brought up about wanting some other options. And so this company, I work well with. And I know they do utilities. Gulf Shores Utilities is currently using them. Huntsville, Auburn. So when I'm trying to look at a company that this is their specialty, they could bring y'all some options of, some different plans.
Do you said you got direction. I don't remember council giving any direction. In fact, I was a little surprised at the last work session to see them when I didn't even know that was even a consideration. And so, I mean, is it absolutely necessary? Do we not have a citizens advisory group that could help us put together a plan, staff and council put together a plan? Why do we need somebody to come in here and give us a plan? And I don't really know that they can go out and get us better rates than we can get ourselves. I know they said they can, but we've been really successful in going out to bid and getting, savings rates and things like that. And, our investment, we're not going to go out and invest our money in anything other than, CDs and money markets. We're not going to, we're just not. So what kind of investment advice are they going to be giving us that we can't get by shopping around rates ourselves?
There, just to be able to know there's other options out there that's outside of what, I've researched on. And Mr. Martin, you're the one that in a meeting,
You asked for a third-party opinion, but I
Yes.
didn't know we were putting, I just thought we was gonna get an opinion to see if it was prudent for us to get money and how we're gonna pay it off, but not for an annual deal.
well, we
One
can,
pro-
You can only do it, you can do it one time.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be.
That's what okay, I'm still asking
Yes,
that.
so
Yeah,
you
when
can-
did no one said we needed a continual
That's why I said
$20,000.
I think the difference was when they came and presented the deal was if you engaged them on a second question or whatever, it was cheaper to do the annual than if you, like the one-time fee was cheaper, but if you had to follow up with anything else, it was gonna be cheaper to do an annual fee, at least from what they presented.
yeah.
Why do we
And-
need to follow up if they can give us our one answer? What is our?
Well, that's what I asked Kim, if she
That's
ever
what
had
we
a
need.
need, if she ever reached out for,
Growing government, it's just growing government, just growing more and more, just more service contracts, more and more.
Well, it's if you use them for only one thing, it's $15,000. If you use them for the entire year, it's 20.
Okay.
So it's,
14, what?
I'm looking at it right here on page
That was
9 of
like-
their proposal. Now, and how they bill that is they've got their hourly rates in here, and then they bill us for transactions depending on what they do for us. Now, it's a retainer, so we have to be using them for them to bill against, correct? Or are we paying it no matter if we ask them questions or not?
It's going to be a quarterly fee, and then you'll be able to utilize them how you need them.
So they don't bill against it, we just use them or don't use them,
Yeah.
we're paying them $5,000 a quarter.
Yeah.
The other
So
thing
it's
is,
not really-
they
it's
are
not a retainer,
licensed.
it's
I mean, they are licensed and
It's a
you can
bill.
only use certain, and only certain groups that can only, there's only certain groups that are licensed to do this kind of work. So if you wanted to, look elsewhere, we could do that, but there's only certain groups that are licensed to do it.
I think the main thing for using them was to make sure that we had the right, I guess, dollar amount in place for what we're gonna borrow, because we were trying to match the sources and uses and figure out what that cash flow looked like over a period of time, so that you're not borrowing more than you need, but you're not borrowing less than you need, and just have
Right.
somebody really pinpoint it down. I agree with Councilman Burrell, when it comes to investments, we just need to be plain vanilla. We don't need to get fancy on that, but I think they're coming in more from helping us get to that correct line of credit amount effectively, and
And is that the base standard amount for some company for that one opportunity is 15,000? Like, it's just, we're comfortable with this company, so is that what it is?
Yes,
Okay.
Yeah, they work with a lot of different utilities.
yes.
Councilman Conyers, I kind of look at, I'm sorry. I kind of look at there's our utilities. We have 4 lines of business, right? Water, gas, sewer, electricity, 4 lines. We're pretty darn good at forecasting what we're gonna make each year. We're really good at that. We've been doing it forever. We know about what kind of profit we're gonna make, and we ought to have a good idea. They're only as good as the information we give them. We ought to have a good idea of what we need going forward in expenditures. There's not a whole lot of, and those are pretty broad expenditures. So if you look at the accounts of money going out and the accounts of money coming in, you know how much you need, you know how much you make. we need to pay somebody $20,000 to figure that out. We're not that smart. I mean, we can do it.
In fairness to Kim, I think the council asked
We
for a
did.
second set of eyes on that. I mean, I don't mind if we want to take a swing at it and just sit down as a group collectively and do our own forecasting. I mean, certainly can do that.
But you have to do it too. Excuse
Right,
me
it was
for
just
interrupting,
an
but
ask.
y'all have to sit down and do it too. I think that's part of the problem.
Well, that could be, and that
Yeah.
would probably be the most compelling argument.
I mean, I'm
Well,
sorry to
you
say
have
that,
time to
but
do it, and
yes,
then do it.
that's right.
Councilman Burrell, that's what I was saying.
Well, I was trying not to say that, but
You say
it's the
that.
truth.
That's your best argument.
But, I mean, because y'all are the utilities board, and Kim and I together can't make these decisions, and we keep talking about it, but we keep kicking the can down the road.
Yeah, and I
And we're
think-
gonna have bills, that we need to pay.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of, if I'm remembering right, 2 meetings ago, that's what led us down this road, is a discussion of, all right, we've been using cash on hand for a while. We're sort of getting to the point where the projects are piling up and the expenses are piling up, and we're seeing that there may not be cash on hand to continue to do it that way as these projects get bigger and bigger. My thought is, and this is something that Councilman Burrell brought up, is even though the project costs are getting bigger, are we still able to do all of those things before that cash runs out? Does that make sense? I mean, we're planning 15 million worth of upgrades, but can we only do 7 million worth in that budget year, and we'll have that money to be able to handle that? I guess that's my question, and sort of, that's where I might want help planning, as here's what the project cost, here's when the costs are gonna be incurred, here's what our money looks like during that time frame. Do we need more, do we not? Do we need an outside source? And I feel like we've had that discussion in some regard, and the answer was, you do need an outside source of money. Line of credit, I know that Jimmy's talked about it. And so I don't mind sitting down trying to come up with a plan. We just got to have the right information to be able to do that.
We had something like that, Kim, several years ago, a spreadsheet, and, and it was tiered, and we know how much we had coming in, and we knew we had to pay for. I mean, it was pretty.
Well, I've
In-depth.
every year I've given y'all, that's when I would go meet with Moody and Standard, that's what they wanted to see. They wanted to look back 4 years, they want to look forward 5 years. And every year in budget, I've given, trying to show you, here's what I can see, where I can see our cash, shortfall in our cash. We've got to a point that we've got to make decisions here, because the cash has run out. And so, this is where we are.
So when you say the cash is,
Yeah. Our cash, our utility cash for capital projects.
Yeah, so, but this was mostly for water. We saw that our other utilities could pretty much maintain a cash flow for themselves, and we were really concerned about water. I'm just regurgitating here. And so my question is, it seems like this company is a little bit bloviated, to me, in my opinion, as far as we're in the weeds. If we're just trying to focus on just water, they went into space, and maybe that's what we're paying for them to extend that to space. But I just wanted, real simple, what do we have? Can you come in, give me an idea of what I can do with my water, and if this line of credit is gonna pay for itself for what I got for water and sewer?
Yeah.
That's really what I was looking for, and I didn't know I was gonna have to get in the weeds.
Well, we're looking at water and sewer, and we're looking at gas, because we just got some estimates on gas of what. So it was trying to look at all the utilities, looking at our 5 years, what projects we have, and being able to see what are the options. Is line of credit, was line of credit made sense? That's what we want to find out, is line of credit make sense? Does it make sense to have a line of credit for 3 years, and then what are we going to do after that point? And so I felt like I took the direction, maybe I misunderstood, that I took the direction of trying to get another opinion of what are some options, and looking at, what is 3 years, what is 5 years. I know we've been, the
That's
city's
all we
been.
wanted to know, though.
Yeah.
And then they're obviously doing way more than that for $15,000-$20,000.
Yeah. Kim, I don't think you misunderstood. I think maybe we weren't clear in exactly what we were asking you to do. Because I personally didn't have heartburn when I saw this, because I kind of anticipated it based on the conversation from 2 meetings ago and then what we did last meeting and introducing them. Maybe I understood it differently.
And-
But I'm not certain, just in looking at it, that it's exactly what we need. I don't know.
I'd like for us to take a shot at it, and I pledge that I would get on it.
Man, can they not dumb it down? That's what I'm saying. Like, that's all I'm asking.
They might think $20,000 is dumbed down.
That's what I'm asking. Is that the mark? I'm just asking, like,
Annual
'cause,
retainer, that's not that. That
I don't
don't
think you'll
sound
get
that high.
much for less than that.
huh? What'd you say, Jimmy?
I was saying, I'm just assuming that you're not gonna get it for much cheaper than that for an annual retainer. I mean, the
Well, not
one-time
annual.
fee at
That's what
15.
I'm saying. I don't need that. Okay.
It's about time for 15.
All right, but guys, I want to move on because we got a couple more things I want to talk about. Yeah, what's y'all's thoughts on this before we move on? Do y'all want to table it? Do y'all want to?
I personally would like to table it. That's my opinion.
I would like to table it. I'm on a business deal. I'm gonna spend 20, I wanna make 25 back.
Right. That's what I mean. Like,
All right,
I don't
well-
see any, like, what's
I
our,
don't see that.
I don't see that. That's what I'm saying. Why are we, I just want a little information.
All right, well,
I'm fine tabling it. I think Kim, I'm fine tabling it, but I think Kim brought them here last week, or last meeting. We went over
yeah.
all this.
Yeah.
Nobody said anything at that time, so
So,
that's fine to have a different opinion. Just go around.
all right, thank you.
Number 19.
Number 19.
Number 19, that is changing our purchasing guidelines to go with the new purchasing law. The bid limit went up to 30,000, and the Public Works law went from 50,000 to 100,000. So that was just changing our purchasing guidelines to match what the law changed. Have any questions?
Kim, are you gonna, we've got 26 and 27 are charge-off uncollectible utility accounts
Oh,
and
yeah, that one
charge-off
too.
insufficient checks.
Yes. So we didn't last year do a write-off. This is bringing forward for this year to do a write-off. And so those are the ones that we should be writing off. And we continue to still do collections through a collection service. And this year, we actually did some collections that's through, it's called like a debt offset, that we turn in those amounts to the state, and the state will, if anybody gets a state refund, we get our money off their state refund.
Is there, is this sort of the average for an annual amount? Like we go next time, we should be looking at 17, 18. I mean, is it gonna be this much each time?
Well, it's what I've seen a trend in the past few years is that number, it keeps going down and down. We're starting to collect better data on the
Okay.
customers, and past customers, we might not have got their social security number, we didn't get a lot of information, and, renters is big problems that you have from renters, they, even though, let's give you an example, as I looked at one, deposit is, for water, they had water only, is $20 as a deposit, but they were a renter and they left and didn't pay the last few months' bill, and it was $175 was left on their account. Those are cases that is from a renter, that we run into and they move outside, trying to find those. Those are hard. But I have noticed, this was last year when I was working on the audit, looking at trends, and the numbers are getting better for us, collecting better data, putting the data into Munis.
Okay, thank you, Kim.
You're welcome.
Before we break for work session, I want to talk about item 5, the ordinance on the water annexation. Mayor, who's going to explain that? Will you go ahead?
So the ordinance that you have before you tonight to consider is an ordinance that would, basically, if you are contiguous to our city limits and you would like to receive water service, then you'll have to annex into the city limits. This is common practice in other municipalities throughout the state, I think probably throughout the country, and something that Fairhope has never done. People building outside the city limits, to be honest, has always been a way for them to bypass impact fees, the things that we use for police, fire, parks, those type of things. So this is a way, if they want our, if they want to connect to our water service, they'll have to annex in first, and then they'll start that planning process. They'll annex in their parcel. If they're not contiguous, then there'll be some decisions that we need to discuss in the ordinance, like where they are in the process of, planning to decide if we are going to consider them for water service or not.
And so if we deny them water service, then they'll have the opportunity to seek service through some other provider.
Well, or put in a well, or, yeah. But there's not another water provider, that could service them, more than likely.
Well, what about that, if you look at that development that it's going in at 104 and 181, the northeast quadrant of that, Hunter, you follow me? Pretty big development.
The apartments,
Rockwell,
What's there?
our Harvest
the
Green,
apartments. You said 181 and 104?
181.
There's quite a few.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
bunch
there's
of them.
several of them right there, but a lot of those are contiguous, right? 'Cause
Harvest Green's in the city.
And the Encounter development is in the city, so Rockwell is the only
Only
one that
one
has
not.
not.
Okay, so, but did they annex upon approval of that, or were they already in the city?
They annexed, the Harvest Green annexed prior to.
They were all conditional annexations. I believe they did get their utility availability letters before annexing in, but they did annex
But they
in
annexed
before
in.
they
They did.
did the
They
preliminary
did.
plats and.
Right, but that's a prime example where they are contiguous to the city.
Correct.
And if we said, you annex, or we won't provide you water, there's another water provider
Close by.
right there.
There is.
So the question is, I know we got a short-term issue right now, and it's short-term, I want to stress that. Are we cutting our own throat? Because we are in the business of selling water. We are in the business of selling utilities as well. And if we allow them to come over into our territory and start selling water, what does that do to our territory?
Well, I think we need to protect our territory.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need to
I think
protect, so
that's
we
the
gotta talk
key
about
phrase
that.
that we need to
Yeah.
discuss.
Yeah, that's something that we need to talk about. We just gotta figure out how to protect the territory. But I agree, Jack, but I think we need to talk about that first.
I mean, can somebody tell me if you're contiguous, southeast part of town, where we have our water supply, our water network is much larger. It's not necessarily right by one of our competitors. They would have to come maybe a few miles to reach that contiguous property, which said, well, we refuse to do that. We'll just stay in the county. We're not going to annex. And we'll get our water elsewhere. Is there any law that says that somebody else can provide them water? Could they cross our water lines by 2 or 3 miles?
I would have to look at that. I don't know that
That's
question.
a
I know that
major
answer.
question right there.
Yeah. That's
Well, and are
something
those questions that we need answered
That's right,
before we
before we
can?
talk about it.
I worry about if you introduce this, does it have those considerations in there? I don't know. I like the principle of it, as long as you're protecting your assets. But I don't know if your assets get obliterated by doing so.
Well, I
thought we
mean,
looked at it.
if you introduce it, and Marcus, this might be for you,
Yeah,
if
Marcus.
we introduce it and then find out information that makes us, can you table it? Either from I
a
don't
severability.
know that there's a constitutional issue to it, but it may just be an economic issue to it, or some other issue that prevents us from wanting to move forward with it.
There's some policies too that we've looked at that we need to kind of follow up, addressing those types of concerns that you got.
I saw the cases that you quoted.
Yeah.
Y'all may have seen that.
Yeah.
Yes, sir, we saw the cases that you quoted.
But the introduction of it is just gonna get it to where that's what the policy of the, or excuse me, the ordinance is going to require annexation for contiguous properties. The policy allows the non-contiguous and the reach outs, beyond the city limits, because the whereas, the paragraphs that you got in the actual ordinance, you're protecting, your main responsibility is to the citizens of Fairhope and the water services provided here. And the ones that are outside, like the mayor said, they're not paying the impact fees and whatnot because they're sitting outside. Those are the ones that
But
you
I
want
think-
to attach to and get them in.
What Jack is, if I hear what Jack, we're just going to pontificate. I think we're talking about territory and franchise and competition is what we're really talking about. We're really not talking about our water policies. What we're saying is, our water policies, by doing this, does that feed into any type of confusing franchise territory laws, compete laws, antitrust, all of those things?
Once you get out, if you're talking about going out to, to the river or anything like that, you're out in Wild West out there.
No man's land.
Yeah, but you got places closer to the airport that are contiguous to a city property. They're miles from anybody else's water system other than ours. And you tell them they want to construct a home and they're contiguous, and you say, well, you annex, we're not going to give you water. Are they, by law, allowed to tell some other water provider that you can bring me water now? And now that water crosses your water jurisdiction by maybe several miles. Does that give that other utility the ability to start?
The legality.
Gives them a
taking
foothold
all
in the
your
market.
potential
Customers.
I would think you would want to go out there and service them if they wanted to. Now, you're talking about where somebody says, I don't want to annex in.
Right, that's what we're talking about.
It would be a question of, at that point, you gotta look at the economics of what they're doing. Is it gonna be cheaper for them to have somebody run a water line 2 miles to that one place, or is it gonna be cheaper for us to do it?
But no, that's not-
I think we know the answer to that.
Yeah.
That's not
Yeah.
economical to serve that one, but now that they breach our lines and they
Our
come in
territory.
several miles.
I think
do
it would be
they-
appropriate to have those discussions potentially at executive session.
That's what.
So the question my question is, if we introduce this ordinance tonight and don't like whatever answer we get in executive session, what do we do next time? Either vote to,
It can be tabled, you can vote it down, or it can be reintroduced in a revised format.
okay,
We don't have a 6 month, what's the window for reintroducing something though?
if it's voted down?
Yeah.
It starts over, right?
No, you can't bring it up again.
How long can
Well,
you
if you
table
vote
it?
it down and it changes form materially, it's not the same
It's not the
ordinance.
same ordinance, right?
Okay, all right, guys. We're going to adjourn the work session and come back as close to 6 as we can and get started.